The 1970s, an era of bell-bottoms, disco balls, and a seismic cultural shift. The 1970s were a time when fashion was bold, music was loud, and the spirit of change was in the air. People were breaking free from the conservative norms of the previous decades, embracing a new sense of freedom and individuality. This decade left an indelible mark on American society, and nowhere was this more evident than in the hallways of its high schools. These institutions became the breeding grounds for new ideas and cultural shifts, reflecting the broader changes happening across the country. The 1970s high school was a fascinating microcosm of the changes sweeping the nation. Students were not just passive recipients of these changes, they were active participants, shaping and being shaped by the world around them. The interactions in the school corridors, the conversations in classrooms, and the activities in the schoolyards all mirrored the larger societal transformations. It was a time of both turmoil and transformation, a period where old norms were challenged and new ideas took root. The traditional values that had long governed society were being questioned, and in their place, a new set of beliefs and practices began to emerge. This was particularly evident in the realm of education, where students and teachers alike were pushing for more progressive and inclusive curricula. The Vietnam War raged on, casting a long shadow over the nation, and deeply impacting the lives of young people on the verge of adulthood. The war was a constant presence in the lives of high school students, many of whom had older siblings or friends who were drafted. The fear and uncertainty of the war permeated the school environment, influencing everything from classroom discussions to extracurricular activities. Social and political activism was at an all-time high, and students found their voices, raising them in protest against injustice and demanding to be heard. High schools became centers of activism, with students organizing protests, sit-ins, and other forms of civil disobedience. They were not afraid to challenge authority and fight for what they believed in, whether it was civil rights, gender equality, or opposition to the war. Amidst this backdrop of social change, high schools became hotbeds of cultural expression. Students used art, music, and theater as outlets for their creativity and as means of expressing their views on the world. School performances and cultural activities were not just extracurricular, they were integral parts of the educational experience, providing students with opportunities to explore and express their identities. Music, fashion, and social attitudes were evolving at a dizzying pace, shaping the experiences of the teenagers who walked those hallowed halls. The sounds of rock and roll, disco, and soul music filled the air, while the latest fashion trends, from bell-bottoms to tie-dye shirts, were proudly displayed by students. These cultural elements were more than just trends, they were symbols of the changing times and the new values that were taking hold. It was a time of self-discovery, rebellion, and an unquenchable thirst for something different, something more. Teenagers were questioning everything, from their personal identities to the societal structures around them. This quest for self-discovery often led to clashes with authority figures, but it also paved the way for personal growth and a deeper understanding of the world. The 1970s high school was a melting pot of ideas, anxieties, and dreams. Students came from diverse backgrounds and brought with them a wide range of perspectives and aspirations. This diversity enriched the school environment, fostering a culture of open dialogue and mutual respect. However, it also brought its own set of challenges as students navigated the complexities of identity, peer pressure, and the expectations placed upon them. It was a time when the future felt uncertain, yet full of possibilities. The world was changing rapidly, and with it, the opportunities available to young people. While this uncertainty could be daunting, it also inspired a sense of hope and optimism. Students dreamed of making a difference, of leaving their mark on the world, and of building a better future for themselves and for generations to come. To understand this era is to understand a pivotal moment in American history, a moment that continues to reverberate today. The changes that took place in the 1970s laid the groundwork for many of the social, cultural, and political developments that followed. By looking back at this transformative decade, we can gain valuable insights into the forces that have shaped our present and will continue to influence our future. Walking through the doors of a 1970s high school was an experience unlike any other. The moment you stepped inside, you were transported into a world that was vibrant, dynamic, and full of life. The school building itself, with its brick facade and large windows, stood as a testament to the era's architectural style. The entrance was always bustling with students, each one eager to start their day, catch up with friends, or perhaps finish some last-minute homework. The air crackled with a unique energy, a mix of anticipation, excitement, and a touch of teenage angst. As you walked down the hallways, you could feel the pulse of the school. The walls were adorned with posters for upcoming events, dances, and club meetings. The lockers, painted in the school colors, were a hub of activity as students exchanged books, notes, and the latest gossip. Lockers slammed, laughter echoed down the hallways, and the scent of aqua velva mingled with the aroma of pizza from the cafeteria. The cafeteria was a central gathering place, where students from all grades would come together to share meals, stories, and dreams. It was a place where friendships were forged over shared lunches, and where the social dynamics of the school played out in real time. The social hierarchy was alive and well, but the lines were beginning to blur. Cliques still existed, but there was a growing sense of inclusivity. Students were starting to break free from the rigid social structures that had defined previous generations. It was a time of change, and the high school was a microcosm of the broader societal shifts happening outside its walls. Jocks, cheerleaders, greasers, and nerds still roamed the halls, but there was a growing sense of acceptance for those who didn't quite fit in. The jocks and cheerleaders, with their athletic prowess and school spirit, were still at the top of the social ladder, but they were no longer the only ones who mattered. The greasers, with their rebellious attitude and distinctive style, and the nerds, with their academic focus and unique interests, were finding their own places in the social fabric of the school. The counterculture movement had seeped into the mainstream, encouraging individuality and self-expression. Students were experimenting with new styles, new ideas, and new ways of being. The fashion of the time reflected this shift, with bell-bottoms, tie-dye shirts, and long hair becoming symbols of a generation that was eager to break free from the constraints of the past. Extracurricular activities thrived, offering students a chance to explore their passions and connect with like-minded peers. Clubs and organizations were an essential part of the high school experience, providing a sense of belonging and purpose. Whether it was the drama club, the debate team, or the chess club, there was something for everyone. These activities were more than just a way to pass the time. They were a vital part of the students' personal and social development. Football games were major social events, with the stands packed with cheering students and the marching band setting the rhythm for the night. The excitement was palpable as the crowd roared with every touchdown, and the band played the school fight song. These games were more than just a display of athletic skill. They were a celebration of school spirit and community. The drama club provided an outlet for budding actors and actresses, allowing them to explore their creativity and bring stories to life on stage. The performances were a highlight of the school year, drawing audiences from both the student body and the local community. The dedication and hard work of the drama club members were evident in every production, from the elaborate sets to the carefully crafted costumes, while the debate team honed the skills of future politicians and lawyers. These students engaged in rigorous intellectual battles, sharpening their minds and learning the art of persuasion. The debate competitions were intense, with participants passionately arguing their points and striving to outwit their opponents. It was a training ground for critical thinking and public speaking, skills that would serve them well in their future careers. Clubs and organizations catered to a wide range of interests. From chess club to the yearbook committee, the chess club was a haven for strategic thinkers, where students could challenge each other in games of intellect and strategy. The yearbook committee, on the other hand, was responsible for capturing the memories of the school year, creating a lasting record of the events, people, and moments that defined their high school experience. Students poured their hearts into these activities, forging friendships and creating memories that would last a lifetime. The bonds formed in these clubs and organizations were strong, built on shared experiences and common goals. These were the moments that students would look back on with fondness, the moments that would shape their identities and influence their futures. It was a time for exploration, a time to try new things, and a time to discover who you were in the grand tapestry of high school life. The high school experience of the 1970s was a journey of self-discovery, a time to push boundaries and explore new horizons. It was a period of growth and transformation, where students learned not only about the world around them, but also about themselves. The lessons learned and the experiences gained during these years would stay with them for the rest of their lives, shaping the adults they would become. statement of rebellion and a desire to stand out. The influence of rock and roll, disco, and other cultural movements of the time played a significant role in shaping the fashion sensibilities of young men, who sought to emulate their favorite musicians and celebrities. Girls experimented with miniskirts, maxi dresses, and the ever-popular bell-bottoms. These styles allowed them to express their femininity while also challenging traditional gender norms. The fashion choices of young women in the 1970s were influenced by the feminist movement, which encouraged them to assert their independence and challenge societal expectations. The variety of styles available to girls during this time reflected a broader cultural shift towards greater freedom and self-expression. Hair became a form of self-expression, with afros reaching new heights and feathered hair becoming all the rage. Hairstyles were an integral part of the overall fashion statement, and students used their hair to make bold and individualistic statements. The popularity of afros in particular was tied to the Black Power movement, which celebrated African heritage and promoted pride in natural hair textures. Feathered hair, on the other hand, was popularized by celebrities and became a symbol of the glamorous and carefree spirit of the decade. School administrators, often clinging to the more conservative styles of the past, struggled to keep up with the ever-evolving fashion trends. They were tasked with maintaining order and discipline, but the rapidly changing fashion landscape made this increasingly difficult. Dress codes were implemented in an attempt to curb what was seen as excessive or inappropriate attire, but these rules were frequently met with resistance from students who viewed them as an infringement on their personal freedom. Dress codes were implemented, debated, and often challenged as students fought for their right to express their individuality through their clothing choices. Protests and demonstrations became common as students organized to push back against restrictive dress codes. These actions were not just about fashion, they were about asserting their rights and challenging the authority of the school administration. The debates over dress codes often mirrored larger societal debates about freedom, individuality, and the role of authority. The battle over dress codes went beyond mere aesthetics. It was a reflection of the broader cultural and generational shifts taking place in society. The fashion choices of students were a way for them to express their identities and align themselves with the values and ideals of their generation. For many, the fight over dress codes was a fight for recognition and respect. It represented a larger clash of values, a generational divide between the old and the new. The older generation, represented by school administrators and teachers, often viewed the new fashion trends as a threat to traditional values and social order. Meanwhile, the younger generation saw their fashion choices as a way to challenge the status quo and push for greater freedom and self-expression. This generational divide was a microcosm of the larger cultural conflicts that were playing out across the country during the 1970s. For students, their clothing was a form of rebellion, a way to assert their independence and challenge the status quo. The fashion choices of the 1970s were about more than just looking good. They were about making a statement and pushing back against the constraints of the past. This spirit of rebellion and individuality was a defining characteristic of the decade, and it was reflected in the bold and diverse fashion choices of high school students. The debate over hemlines and hairstyles became a microcosm of the larger societal shifts taking place outside the school walls. As students pushed for greater freedom and self-expression, they were also challenging the broader societal norms and expectations that had been imposed on them. The fashion revolution of the 1970s was not just about clothing, it was about a fundamental shift in values and attitudes that would have a lasting impact on future generations. The winds of change weren't just blowing through the hallways of 1970s high schools, they were also sweeping through the classrooms. The curriculum itself was undergoing a transformation, reflecting the evolving social landscape and a growing awareness of the complexities of the human experience. New subjects, once considered taboo or too controversial for the classroom, began to emerge. Sociology and psychology, fields that explored the intricacies of human behavior and social structures, found their way into the curriculum, offering students new lenses through which to view the world around them. These courses encouraged critical thinking, challenged traditional assumptions, and sparked lively debates among students eager to grapple with the social and political issues of the day. The classroom became a forum for exploring topics like racism, sexism, and the ongoing struggle for civil rights. The inclusion of these new subjects signaled a shift in educational philosophy. a move away from rote memorization and towards a more holistic approach to learning that recognized the importance of critical thinking, social awareness, and personal growth. It was a time when education began to embrace the idea that to understand the world, one had to understand themselves and their place within it.